The merging of IT, IoT, and OT offers new opportunities, but also increases the risk to organizations. Forescout Research is one of those rare groups dedicated to investigating the complex world of OT vulnerabilities and ranks among the top 3 in the world. Our investment in original research helps shape the future of security. Today, I'm meeting up with Elisa Costante, the VP of Research at Forescout. Hey!
Hey, Rick.
How are you, Elisa? Good?
Good. Good to see you. I'm so happy you're here.
The team of experts in the cybersecurity research arm of Forescout focuses on threat and vulnerability research that is delivered to the Forescout platform to ensure customers have the latest automated cybersecurity to protect their mixed IT, OT, IoT, and even medical environments. This is not your average research team.
Forescout Research is a team of people first, people that actually care and is good at doing threat research.
Elisa invited me to a strategy session with Daniel Dos Santos, head of security research. He's the person who directly manages some of the most groundbreaking vulnerability investigations in the world.
Basically, the technical part is done. It's all about the disclosure and the reports.
We call it adversary engagement platform because it's much more than a honeypot. It's actually what we are doing is putting sensors in different geographies and trying to understand, okay, which kind of actors are attacking this part of the world. And we share that information actually with all the stakeholders.
And Rick, maybe you want to come and have a look at the lab because we have a lot of things that we are still adding and things that are part of the AE now. So there are these two environments that we could discuss.
Our research team is not huge. Like if we compare our research team to other in the industry, like you have 200 people, analysts, etc., we are around 20 people. But the knowledge we have is quite unique.
So this is where the magic happens?
Yeah, this is the lab. We use it to do protocol reverse engineering. We use to basically understand how these devices work, what are the threats, what are the vulnerabilities and the issues that they have.
So what do we have? I can see we've got stuff is divided around the room. What is this?
Yeah, so this is operational technology, industrial control systems, where we have a lot of devices that are typically used in critical infrastructure, utilities, power distribution, water treatment, and things like that.
What kinds of things are they? What do we have?
Yeah, we got PLCs, we got RTUs, we got industrial switches. It is actually one of the most popular PLCs in the world, and it was a similar model to the one that was used in the Stuxnet attack, which was the first malware known to cause actual cyber-physical damage.
Sometimes I love to say that we are a boutique research team because what we do is really focused on years and years of experience that we have made on unmanaged devices, on IoT, OT devices, building automation devices, medical devices.
So this is where we have the building automation devices, typical things that you see in a building that are less safety critical in a way. So
that's why we're looking at fans, that's why we're looking at cameras.
And that's an interesting point of connection, that you have this type of device very close to this type of device, which is completely different in this case, right? An IP camera, we typically would classify that as IoT, as Internet of Things, not operational technology anymore, but it sits on the same network as this type of legacy, old style device.
The persons that are actually putting light bulbs or IP cameras in an organization, they are not cybersecurity experts. So they will do, guess what? The easiest thing to do. So they will leave an IP camera configured in the easiest way, not in the most secure way.
Enterprise networks are hugely diverse environments, and attackers have been targeting unmanaged devices like IoT for many years now. And unfortunately, medical devices are no exception, often running vulnerable or outdated software. Forescout's own data has shown that 75% of healthcare organizations are affected by TCP/IP vulnerabilities alone.
Yeah, and that's interesting because, you can see that patient monitor running Windows XP, right? You can see the screensaver there, and that's the same Windows XP that you would have running 20 years ago maybe in your house.
And it hasn't been supported for a long time, right? It's like traveling back in time in corporate enterprise security, finding those same problems.
The whole issue with the perimeter, right, that we thought was solved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our products actually collect telemetry that we can observe as a research team and try to understand, okay, how is the demography of the devices that we have and how are the networks shaped? So we can see what are the risks. We see a lot of networks, for instance, that are completely flat, no segmentation is there. And on the same network, you will see a VoIP phone, which is vulnerable, attached to an IT server, and there is zero protection in between.
See a lot of those devices still with hard-coded passwords, or if not hard-coded, at least default credentials that are the same for a whole product line. So we do have devices that have very similar or the same TCP/IP stack, maybe different versions, but the same TCP/IP stack on healthcare, on building automation, and industrial control systems.
Right. But you can't, by looking at the box, you can't see that, right? So how do you get inside this stuff? Forescout research doesn't restrict itself to examining just the higher level software running on all these devices. Vulnerabilities can also lurk much more deeply in the firmware itself. Daniel is extracting a processor from this medical device and peering inside the code.
So if you just look at the strings that are on the firmware, you can identify things that look suspicious, right? And for instance, you can see, I know that already here, but you can see something like the actual password to some of those devices appearing in the screen.
What is it that sets Forescout research apart? Because to me, it seems like this stuff is not easy.
Exactly. This is not easy, and this, what you're seeing here, is the result of more than 10 years of acquiring these devices, understanding these devices, taking them apart, understanding the internals, understanding the protocols, reverse engineering stuff, looking at vulnerabilities, looking at threats, and so on. So it's definitely not easy.
It's not just about finding the vulnerable devices, it's what are the threat actors doing and how are they doing it?
Exactly. The threat research is a big part of what we do as well, which is very connected to the vulnerability research, but it has its own nuances.
When we discover a vulnerability, imagine that we have a new device, can be an IP camera that has certain vulnerabilities, and then we expose it on our adversary engagement environment, and then we see it attacked. Then what you have is not only a vulnerability, but is a known exploited vulnerability. So we know that there are bad actors exploiting that in that way. And we are monitoring that as a research team, right?
Forescout research runs many honeypots, physical, virtual, and cloud-based.
This looks like
These honeypots allow us to attract and inspect attackers in real time to discover more about their motives and techniques.
What we have is an industrial wireless gateway actually exposed to the internet, attracting attackers.
It's not a room as full of physical devices as you might expect when you're trying to simulate an enterprise environment. So what's going on in here that we can't see?
Yeah, exactly. So the stuff that we cannot see is sitting right here in this virtualization server. So you will have here virtual machines with web servers, domain controllers, engineering workstations, data historians, and so on, that will kind of bridge these two worlds and will allow the attacker to move through the network so that the more they stay in the network, the more we can actually understand what they are doing, study it, and gather important data out of that.
So speaking of attackers, we've actually got some unread notifications up here on the dashboard. So maybe we can go and see what's been happening right now.
Let's have a look.
Great.
Sure.
When you have a vulnerability that is being discovered, that's not where things stop. Things actually go on. That vulnerability can be exploited. Then you want to know from which threat actors, for what motivation, and what industry is more impacted by that. So the moment that we have, security alerts, the moment we have incidents in our XDR, we can actually enrich that information by providing the big picture.
Okay, let's see what we got then. Seems like we have an alert, and if we check at the types of alerts that we get, there is some that are related to the device that we were actually exposing right there. So we can click on one of them and see what's going on. There is a lot of interesting stuff, like not just the brute force, not just the known bad IPs, but like actual, it's from IP addresses. I can have a look at what this IP address might be.
So this is the value of a honeypot, because what we're looking at now is stuff that's, we had the alerts come up while we were in the honeypot room itself, but this is activity ongoing, real time, that we're looking at as it's coming in on the honeypot. It's exactly what it's for.
It seems like only one.
Malicious from one vendor.
From one vendor.
CrowdSec.
Details. It is.
St. Petersburg.
Yeah, it is registered to an organization, so it's not an ISP.
The thing is, when you're trying to research threat actor activity, everything is potentially useful material, right? So whether it's data contained within an email address that might have been reused at some other site to be registered or in other activity, or whether it's a machine name that poor OPSEC means they've used multiple times across different attacks, or has, tallies up with a username they might have used on an underground forum. All of that information is potentially useful. So you look through whatever you're presented with and then just start digging.
Email address does look a little bit suspicious. Apparently right now, at this moment, that IP address is running on RGP.
And there it is.
Yeah, and there it is, right? So with SSL and so on. So you could potentially assume that it is an actual targeted attack you have to investigate a bit more, but it does have signs of something that is actually not just a scan from another tool or.
That particular honeypot had not been exposed externally for long, but was already being targeted by attackers. As well as the research value, all this data is used to feed Forescout Cloud, making sure our customers always have the latest intelligence and protection.
So basically what the honeypot shows is that attackers will use anything to attack any system that they can get inside. The cool thing is that iInspect gives you all this kind of alerts and all this kind of data. It's ready to be visualized from the get-go.
It's in a more consumable format, right?
Exactly.
That's what helps you in a research function as well as what would help one of our customers using the solution in a production environment.
Exactly.
Looking at all of that together, and especially all of that together in connection with the IT networks, is something that is very, very unique to us.
The foundation of good security is actually doing something about it. You need to have mitigation. You cannot only have a lot of bugs and threats and vulnerabilities and not doing anything. Like a good security researcher needs to ask himself or herself, now what? What can I do? How can I improve that? And not leave that burden to someone else. Help that someone else, which is our customers, organizations, the community, to actually fix it, mitigate it.
What an eye-opening and unique privilege to get this behind-the-scenes look at exactly what goes on in cutting-edge cybersecurity research. Forescout Research is far more than your average research team. To catch up with all the great work we've already published, and for breaking research as it emerges, visit forescout.com/research.